Hey Trekkies, it's summer, and you know what that means. It's time for Creation Entertainment's Trek to Las Vegas 2025. This year, the convention has been expanded to a 5-day schedule, August 6th through the 10th at the Rio Las Vegas Hotel. Meet all your favorite Star Trek pros in one place, and hey, maybe you swing by Vic's Lounge and you see our panel. It's a great way to meet people in person and have some fun with your fellow Trekkies. If you can't make it to Star Trek Las Vegas, of course, there's also other events around the country this year. Trek to Orlando, August 23rd through 24th. There's the Trek to New Jersey, September 6th and 7th. And finally, the Trek to Chicago, November 22nd and 23rd. We're looking forward to meeting as many of you as we can this year. So make sure that you get ready to trek to Las Vegas.
This is Bruce Horak, and you're listening to Open Pike Night, which is why it feels like your brain is being squeezed through your nose.
Is this thing on? Hello, hello. Welcome to Open Pike Night. I'm your host, John T. Bolds, here tonight with some amazing guests on stage and in the studio to have a conversation with the Iceman of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We have brought our finest hands, our finest minds, our best senses of humor and teamwork. And tonight we are a well-oiled machine of a podcast ready to respond at the snap of a finger. And our valued guests on the Open Pike Night Stage have come to show their amazing support. Joining me today are my co-hosts, the man who has made 1,000-time crystal jokes, host of Sudden But Inevitable, Jesse.
More like 10,000.
And the man who knows how to share an inside joke with an old friend if it means messing with a newbie, because he's been there, host of Green Shirt, a Newbie's Trek Through TNG, Cameron.
I am here to put the fist in pacifist.
And tonight, we have an amazing special guest joining Open Pike Night for the first time. A man who knows the value of being blue, as well as the power of the color itself in his artwork. A man who made Trekkies old and new love a new generation of Enterprise engineer and help remind us that loss is unavoidable. An artist both on screen and off, Bruce Horak, welcome to Open Pike Night.
Hey, I've had a good life. Do not weep for me. That's the only line I can remember from the show.
It's a good one. It's
very
appropriate.
Good. Just making us feel it right at the beginning. All right, here we go.
There you go. Start with tears.
So, as usual, we split the interview up between the hosts, and Cam will start us off.
Sure. Well, Bruce, you are an artist of many disciplines, painting, acting, both television and stage. I believe I've heard you mention music in the past.
Yes.
So my usual first question of how you got into acting, I don't know if it's appropriate here. What was like the first creative outlet that you did dive into, and how did that come about?
I came from a really artistic family. There was a piano down in the basement, so I was probably plunking on the keys before I went to elementary school even. My dad was an artist, and so we were always drawing and making comic books and pages and things like that from the time. I have 3 older brothers, and we're all very artistically inclined. Dad was also a drama teacher, so he would, get the family together and we put on a Christmas show for the relatives and that sort of thing. So it was just really a part of the environment growing up, and it just seemed inevitable that some creative life was ahead of me in exactly what discipline I was really unsure of, and kind of always am. Every morning I get up and go, all right, what's on the plate today? And sometimes it's painting, and sometimes it's writing, and sometimes it's filing my taxes, which can be a creative endeavor as well.
Artistically files taxes, got it.
Well, so suddenly Revenue Canada is going to come out and knock on the door. You're real creative with these ideas. No, it's, I have managed in my life to, I jokingly say I haven't had to get a real job, but I mean, obviously there's been elements of, working at a bookstore and things like that. But for the most part, my life has been creating in whatever outlet or facet I am interested in at the time. And I just love it all. And honestly, I get asked, like, what's your favorite? Is it acting or is it painting or music or what's the favorite? And I really I can't pick.
No Sophie's choice for you.
I can't just pick one.
Well, when it comes to acting, like, what was there a moment and you were like, yeah, I'm going to tackle this one a little more, whether it's professional or serious? Like, what was that moment?
Yeah, in the high school that I went to, you kind of had to whittle down your options. So when I was in grade 10, I was in music and art and drama, and then you had to cut one of those away. So the first one I ended up cutting was, gosh, what was the first one? Music, I guess, was the first one that I cut because I was doing it extracurricularly anyway. So I wasn't studying it per se. My buddy and I would take our guitars, and Friday afternoon we had arranged to have spare time, so we would go downtown and busk on street corners and sing, which was great. And then grade 11, I had to cut one away, and the one I decided to cut was art class. I had a real struggle in art to create the kind of photorealism or the kind of detail that my colleagues, and I just felt like I wasn't keeping up, and had a really frank conversation with my art teacher who said she couldn't think of a post-secondary art institution that would be able to teach a blind man to have a career path in art, visual art. And I had a passion for theater, and I managed to fake being sighted on stage well enough that and explore, like, okay, other characters and kind of playing this other stuff. But I was able to rehearse a show and create a character and move about on the stage, and people wouldn't know that I was visually impaired. And I thought, wow, this is great. Like, it's a whole career path of faking it. I could just get on stage and pretend to be somebody else, and the audience will have no idea. And that was kind of appealing. I was writing my own plays and a short film when I was in high school, and I really got into a playwriting kick. One of the very first plays that I ever saw, I was in elementary school, and a children's theater company came to my school, and I was in probably about grade 3. And this company set up, it was a group of, young people, probably just out of theater school, 3 of them, and they transformed the gymnasium into a theater and did this incredible show. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. Apparently, I don't remember doing this, but my mother tells the story that I came home after that, and I asked if there were plays about like visually impaired kids or children with disabilities, and Mom was like, I don't think so. And apparently what I said was, I'm going to write stories like that. I'm going to write stories for people like me. And then I ended up going to theater school primarily to learn to be a playwright. I had a mentor who I was asking him about a career path, and I had 2 choices. One was to go to Montreal, to McGill University, and take a playwriting stream. Or the other was, I had a job offer from a local theater company where they would pay me $75 a week to be an apprentice. And I would apprentice under absolutely every department, including stage management. And I would get to be in the rehearsal hall, and I could shadow anyone at the company. And the mentor that I spoke with said, well, you could go off to Montreal and get a background in writing, or you could go and learn absolutely every part of theater, so that as a creator, you'll understand all the departments and how people are navigating and what's getting on stage, what's getting chosen, but also meet people in the industry who are working, who you will probably work with later on down the road, and who have the opportunity to hire you. And it was a difficult decision. I wanted to go to Montreal. I really wanted to go away to school, but staying in Calgary and working at that theater company for a year just solidified my path. And I ended up going to a very cool conservatory program in Calgary. It was a 2-year conservatory program, Mount Royal College at the time. And we got to do everything. We got to build sets and flats and make costumes and learn lighting design. And that's when I met the artistic director of the company that brought a play to my school when I was in grade 3. And he and I hit it off, and I started writing plays for him. And one of the first shows I toured out of Mount Royal College was a children's theater piece called The Mermaid's Three Wisdoms. And I did the same tour that had come to my school, 15 years earlier. And I just started writing and performing and producing children's theater in Calgary. During the year, I would work with Quest Theatre. In the summertime, I would do Shakespeare in the Park in Calgary and get on stage and perform outdoor Shakespeare, which was just a whole other passion. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
writing and producing my own work since I got out of school.
Nice. I'm curious, what were some of the cheats or tricks or strategies you used to pass yourself off on stage in those early days?
To fake being sighted. Well, stuff I still use. The beautiful thing about theater is the opportunity to rehearse, so really getting a sense of the space into the body, and that for me is the big thing. Just moving around the sets so that I get it in my body, and I can literally do it with my eyes closed. There's a real sense of space and element. For me, one of the things I do is I'll tape a loonie, which is a Canadian dollar coin. I'll tape that with black duct tape at center stage so I can find it with my foot.
Okay.
I generally tend to face towards the lights because that's where the audience is.
Handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a few tricks. But yeah, it's really rehearsal. But I was a client with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind from the time I was, in utero, basically. Uh, but I did take a life skills workshop when I was in grade 11, and they taught us about something that was referred to as blindisms. So physical tics that people who are blind or visually impaired might exhibit, such as rubbing of the eyes to stimulate the nerves, or what we call stimming out, which is if you have some sense of light, you'll oftentimes direct your head and your eyes towards and kind of stim out on the light because it gives a bit of that visual stimulation. But one of the mentors I had during that workshop says, "Blindisms freak people out. Don't do them."
They make them think they're infected by some Illyrian virus.
That's right. It's like, just don't do that in front of people. It's like it's rude. It's considered rude. So I learned a bit of that, getting rid of my so-called blindisms, but also I don't necessarily see a person's facial features or even or their eyes or their expressions or things like that, but learning to make eye contact, even though I can't see the eyes, that was something. And again, it's social signals of letting someone know that you're listening. Because my tendency would be, I'm going to turn my ear toward you so I can hear you better, but then there's no eye contact, and so much information is given through eye contact, which I'm still not very good at. I got to be honest. People who don't know me and know my visual impairment often think I'm pretty rude. I've heard that from in passing that that Horak guy's a real asshole. I was waving at him across the street and he looked right at me and just ignored me.
Cold stare.
Cold. I'm just cold.
To be totally fair, I have problem making eye contact with some people, and I really don't even have an excuse. I'm just kind of a jerk.
Well, you can borrow my excuse if you like.
Bruce said I could.
Yeah. He said.
Well, now, Star Trek is great and all, Bruce, but, my kind of inspiration childhood growing up that got me into film and filmmaking is a little movie called The Evil Dead. Now, I understand that not only were you in the Evil Dead musical, but you won an award for that. So please just tell me everything you can about being a Deadite and covering the splatter zone with all the gore.
Wow, I haven't thought about Evil Dead the musical in a while. That's lovely. Thanks for digging that up, because it really was an absolute riot to do that show. For your listeners who aren't familiar with Evil Dead the musical, it is. I think they basically covered 3 of the movies in it, and I got to play good old reliable Jake, who is the hillbilly that takes him across the bridge and into the into the cabin in the woods and gets turned into a Deadite. And that was so much fun to do that show. It ran. I think I might get the lore wrong, but I believe it started as a fringe show. And if I recall correctly, there's the sort of apocryphal story that they were performing one night. It was at the Transat Club in Toronto, and the power went out, and they took the whole show, the whole musical and the sets and everything, and went out in the parking lot and had people turn their car lights on, and they did it sort of acoustically in the parking lot. But the show did get picked up and go to Broadway, and they had this incredible set that was basically like puppets everywhere, and the moose head would swing and the beaver would sing and all of it. I mean, it's just wild, and the music is so much fun. And this company in Calgary, Alberta ended up buying the New York set. After they shut it on Broadway, they bought the set and the rights to do the show. So we ran it in Calgary, Alberta at the Vertigo Playhouse, which is right at the base of the Calgary Tower. And so you have to go downstairs off the main street down into the theater. And it was like a rock show. People would show up and know absolutely every line of the movies that would come in. And when he's got the gets attacked by his hand and all that, I mean, everybody knew all the songs, and they would show up in costume, of course. And in the lobby, they had the sort of the cutout frames of you could stick your head and be Ash and all that. But one of the kind of features of Evil Dead the Musical is the amount of blood that gets sprayed and used throughout. And there are 3 secret recipes, because there's 3 different types of blood that had to get used. There's the blood that we eat. So there's a edible blood. There's another blood that just gets sprayed on stage and has the right look. And then there's a third blood that has to get pumped through a whole sort of shower system over the first few rows of the audience in what is known as the splatter zone, which, right towards the end of the show, this blood curtain goes, and then the Deadites go into the audience, and it's just an absolute gore fest. I do recall one night where after the show, the audience left and we were cleaning up, or I think maybe the cast had gone, and coming down the elevator were 2 Calgary police officers who had followed a blood trail from the street into this building and down into an elevator, and were wondering just what was going on. So it was wild. We ended up extending that for a whole summer, and then packed it up and went to Vancouver with it and played it at the Vogue Theatre for a good chunk of time. And I remember, there was kind of this hope that the show would run and run. And so they'd ended up pre-buying and pre-mixing all of this blood for an extended run. And then kind of word came down of like, hey, we're going to close the show, next week or whatever. So there's all this extra blood that had to get. So they started amping up what was coming out of the blood. And the audience itself was on just a slight rake. And so there would just be this moat of blood at the end of the shows that they'd have to come by with a shop vac and pump it out into the alley. And it was pretty extraordinary. But yeah, I got to play good old reliable Jake, and it was just a rock show. I had a ridiculous mustache for it, a huge, like, sort of Derek Smalls kind of biker mustache. And I would get recognized on the street. I would get recognized, like, just walking around like, Jake. That was my first sort of brush with, I guess you'd call it stardom. It was pretty wild.
Jake the Deadite.
Jake, yeah.
Well, just to avoid me getting sucked down the Evil Dead musical rabbit hole, then let's toss it to. We've got, I think, 2 very similar questions, so we'll play both of those back to back.
Yep. First will be our friend Michelle, and then our friend Mariah.
Hey, Open Pike Night. Congratulations on your amazing interview with Henry Alonzo Myers. He was a delight to listen to, and I was so impressed he answered all our questions. So thank you so much for that. And a big welcome to Bruce Horak this week. I was just starting to get to know and love Hemmer when we had to say goodbye to him on the show. I do appreciate the inclusivity that you bring to Star Trek in terms of people with different abilities. And I know that you have a bit of a theater background. So my question is going to be related to my Crusher connection of the week, because I do love Beverly Crusher from The Next Generation. And we all know Beverly Crusher is a big theater person, as is Gates McFadden, who portrays her. So I guess my question is, what differences do you see in terms of how you act when you're in theater versus how you would portray a role on, say, a television show or in a movie? And which medium do you prefer? And how do you think that they support each other? I hope that's an okay question. And thank you so much for being in the Star Trek family. And I can't wait to see you in season 2 somehow on Strange New Worlds. Live long and prosper.
And here's Mariah.
Hi, Open Pike Night. This is Mariah calling from Seattle. And Bruce Horak, thanks so much for being on the show. Excited to hear you answer some questions and chat with everybody. My question is pretty simple. It is just if you would comment on the difference between being a theater actor and being a TV actor. I imagine it's pretty different, the performance being all the way through versus in pieces to capture what you need to for the camera. And I wonder if you could comment on the different kinds of preparation and what felt different about them. Thanks so much.
Wow, great questions. It was Michelle and Mariah, is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, well, thank you for those questions. Well, I'll tell you my experience is that I have very little film and TV experience. My whole background is in live performance. So yeah, Star Trek was a total learning curve for me. I had I'd taken a film and TV class in college, and then had done a couple of auditions, like a small part in an indie movie called Gitch. I did a day on Warehouse 13, and did background on a commercial once. So it was pretty minimal back. Although I did get some days on a CBC or a Canadian television program called History Bites, which was sort of comedic takes on history, world history, Canadian history. And that was like sketch comedy. So I just felt like totally in my element there. This is a very different beast. I learned so much working on Star Trek just from day one. I just kind of went in as an open vessel and thought I'm going to take in everything. I'm going to watch all the actors that are working on this show, because so many of them have incredible pedigree, really. So I just kind of sat back, watched and learned, and tried to emulate what everyone else was doing. I'd say the first big difference that I noticed was vocal quality. You don't have, like, the microphones are right on top of you, and so you don't have to project. You don't have to work that hard. I mean, there's a limit to how soft and quiet you go, because then everyone's turning on the closed captioning, and you don't really want to go that far. But yeah, just bringing things down and just keeping it real close. I think one of the big differences I noticed was how in theater you spend 3 weeks, if you're lucky, usually 2.5, sometimes 6 hours. You rehearse the thing so that you can repeat it over and over and over again, and get the same result. Whereas in film and TV, it's like if you're doing the same thing, if like the next day you show up and you're doing the same thing that you did the day before, then something went wrong because they're trying to add another take in, and that's kind of what I love about working in film and TV, is that the slightest changes, and you watch the way the editor can go, oh, we're going to take a piece from this take, and then there's this piece from another take, and there's a reaction from this other take that's coming in. And so the more play you can have in the different takes, I mean, that was something I got watching Babs, was it just extraordinary how much he offers his directors and editors, really, and just giving them a different intention, or a slightly, this take he was going to do really angry, and then this was all like totally bottled up, and then maybe there was a bit of conviviality in another take, and it's just like giving all of that to an editor, I think, is a real gift, because then it expands into that collaborative approach, which film and TV really is. I mean, everyone that's there is adding their element. I spent one day just watching the boom operators, and how, I mean, again, like no two setups are the same. And so they've got to learn a whole new choreography and dance with a different setup. And they get one rehearsal, they watch the actors move, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to be here, and then I'm going to move this way. And there were some days, I mean, it just looked like a ballet, and improvising on the go, because they weren't set, and the actors were adding different things. And so throughout the day, I really got a sense of that collaboration, and from sound operators to the lighting and the camera and just absolutely everything. The behind the scenes stuff is just wonderful magic to watch. I don't know if I answered the question.
I think you nailed the question to the wall, personally. Speaking of collaboration, so in Memento Mori, Hemmer tells Uhura that an engineer's two most important tools are his mind and his hands. What would you say are an actor's two most important tools?
Mind and heart. Can I have a third? Because I think No, mind and heart. I was going to say ears, but I've worked with deaf actors who are also extraordinary, and
Mm.
I'm speaking of Jack Volpe in particular, who I did an accessible version of Christmas Carol with a couple of years ago. Who
Hmm.
one of the most, I mean, his empathy and compassion is just extraordinary. And so, though, I mean, that I think that's really what I'm getting at when I say mind and heart is that sense of feeling and just listening, and we can listen with more than our ears.
That's a great answer.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think we've got one more clip to kind of wrap up the pre-Star Trek days, just kind of general acting. So let's play that one.
There we go.
Bruce, this is Davy. I'm sure you remember working with me. I would
Davey.
love to know, is there a story or a character that you've always wanted to tell on screen?
Oh, is there a story or a character that I've always wanted to tell on screen? Yeah. Well, geez, I might as well just name it. There's a book by James Christensen called Voyage of the Basset. James Christensen is this incredible artist. Please Google James and look his stuff up. It's extraordinary. And he wrote a book a number of years ago called Voyage of the Basset. The premise is that there's this professor who's got two children, and the professor is he's a professor of mythology, and his department is getting cut because the university thinks there's absolutely no room for mythology anymore. And it was that year that the Basset, or sorry, the HMS Beagle sailed with Charles Darwin, sort of exploding the world of science and all of that. And so the voyage of the Basset, the HMS Basset picks up this professor one day, and the Basset is being sailed by gnomes, and they take the professor to the world of fantasy with his two children, and the professor falls in love with Medusa, and it's just this absolutely extraordinary adventure tale. And they go and they find all these mythological creatures and bring them back to the world and tell the tales as the importance of mythology. That is something I would love to see on screen. I want to see that how far we can go with creating mythological creatures now in CGI and all that. I think it's the time is right for that book. I remember actually writing maybe 15 years ago. I wrote to James Christensen to see if I could get the rights to adapt it, and I think they were being held by Hallmark at the time. So I think
maybe
we'll
Dan
see.
Janot will be appearing in it.
Yeah.
Contact Dan Janot. He knows people at Hallmark. We think he has some pull.
Okay, this might just happen. Yeah, we'll need a writer, Davey. We'll need a writer.
There you
Oh,
go.
man. Well, we are going to move into Star Trek now, more of a Star Trek at large. When did it hit you that you were joining the huge universe culturally that is Star Trek? And what was that like?
It sort of went in increments. There were like the moment where I walked onto the bridge of the Enterprise to shoot my my makeup test. That was a huge moment. I grew up on Star Trek, so for me, yeah, just seeing that world and stepping onto the physical set was a big part of it. But in terms of the landing in the larger universe of the 56 years, that would be, I think, Star Trek Day when they announced when they announced the casting. And it was seconds after that announcement went that I started getting messages on Facebook. And yeah, I have a lot of Trekkie fans in my circle, so yeah, that just started to really blow up. And there was the sort of first level of, that's Corey writing in, or whoever that I knew, but then it started to come from people that I didn't know, and again, the message was welcome to the family, and actors from Discovery who I'd been watching, but certainly had never met or whatever, were just reaching out and saying, welcome, welcome, welcome. That was really extraordinary. And just the outpouring, even before the series aired, just in the announcement of the show and the character and some of the information about my own life, and hopefully what I'm bringing to the role. And I mean, since the show has aired and it's gotten out there, I've gotten messages from all around the world from people who live with disabilities that I mean, it's just so incredibly touching. that it resonates.
So you said you grew up watching Star Trek. What is your home Trek? We like to call it here. Like what's your series?
Oh, well, I was actually this afternoon watching the two-part finale of Next Generation.
Okay.
Because I just love that.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it. But I actually started watching the original series in reruns with the family. Dad would gather the family, and we would sit around and watch Shatner do his shatning, and amazing. And you know, he was Canadian, and Dad very proudly pointed that out, and so everyone had their Shatner impression. And I mean, he was my first captain for sure. Although so many of the supporting cast were just extraordinary as well. And I saw all the movies in the theaters. And then by the time Next Generation came around, Dad had retired, so he watched it all, and we used to gather around and watch that show. I lost track with Star Trek, I'd say, mid-20s, and then came back to it because I was visiting in the States, and Netflix in the States had Enterprise, which I mean, I was a huge Scott Bakula fan from Quantum Leap, and I had never seen the series before. And just binged it. I binged that whole series in like, I don't know, a week or something. It was ridiculous. But I just fell right back in love with all of it. Yeah. And then the movies start coming out again, and it's so good. Yeah. There's so much.
Any kind of like blowing on the back of your neck when the Anar showed up in an Enterprise, and he
absolutely no
that you didn't understand at the time.
No premonition.
Your precog abilities weren't awake yet. Okay, all right.
No, I was young.
You mentioned it. How is your Shatner impersonation?
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Although I will say, and it might just be the Canadian accent, but on one of our last media days in season 1, they had us all individually kind of come in and do some of the interviews, and we would end the interview by each of us got to do the opening monologue and Space the Final Frontier. I couldn't get through the first couple of takes without tearing up, and the sound guy assured me that everyone did. But afterwards, they said yours was the most Shatner. So I feel if that ever gets released,
release the Horak.
I need that.
So you talked about getting reactions. What has been like? Do you have a favorite singular fan reaction?
Yes, I went down to Las Vegas for the 56-year mission, and I met 2 blind engineers, both with albinism, who came up with their guide dogs and had their photos taken with me. I wish I could remember their names. Partners, and they work for Apple designing voiceover technology. And they came up and had their photo taken with Emmer and said, us blind engineers have to stick together, which was really, that cracked me up. That was like absolute high point. But honestly, so many messages of just, there's one sort of tickling my cerebellum. This is a young woman from Argentina, I think, who works she's also visually impaired. She got inspired by Next Generation and Geordie LaForge to follow into, I think she said astrophysics or something like that. Something extraordinary anyway. And just reaching out to say how, grateful to see someone with a visual impairment being represented in that way, not only just the character, but also the actor behind. And that's, it's really quite rewarding.
Was that on your radar when you took the role, that you would kind of be that representation?
Definitely. Right from the moment I read the call sheet for the casting announcement, that they were looking specifically for a blind or a visually impaired performer to play a blind alien. But it was also outlined right from the start that this character was, destined to bite it. And to be, and their words, they said, we're going to build him up to be a fan favorite, and then we're going to knock him off. And they told me at that point, I think it was Henry Alonso Myers who said, just so you know, we're having a really hard time writing the death because we've all fallen in love with this character, which is a good sign, I think. If their intention was to, emotionally propel Uhura into moving into this familyness and the openness of it, then, yeah, you want it to hurt a little bit because nothing opens a person like loss. But
Mhm.
yeah, knowing that, I have a vague memory of a conversation about specifically, if you step into this role, it's Star Trek. Like this is going to be big for representation, and are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think since I started writing stories for people like me and doing shows for people like me, I've been preparing myself for what Hammer represents, and I'm really, really proud of it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
What was your most joyous moment of season 1?
The joy. I tell you, like pure physical elation was the day that I got to do my stunt work, where they rigged me up to a flying harness and flew me up like, well, it felt like 6 million miles in the air, but it was probably 3 stories into above the studio floor, so they could shoot Hammer falling out of the back of the spaceship, which was cut. Because anyway, the angle as it is right now is great, and also you don't see him land. But anyway,
Oh,
no. Cut that out.
They still had blood left over from Evil Dead they needed to use up.
But no,
It just falls off screen and then
the sensation of getting to fly like that in the harness was true joy. The first couple of times, I mean, we spent a day rehearsing it and then another day shooting it, which is, funnily enough, why I have a stunt department T-shirt for Strange New World season 1. It was one day where I put in a harness, and anyway, it ended up on the cutting room floor. But by the time we got to, because the day of rehearsal, I have not had vertigo that bad in ages. And the first time I went up, and I don't even think they took me to the full height. I think it was only about halfway up. And I opened my eyes, and it just, the whole room was spinning, and and they brought me down. And then we spent the rest of the day just doing it in increments so that the body could get used to it. I was pretty shaky, but then when we came in to shoot it, I spent 3 hours in the makeup chair and got into Hammer and got into the costume, and they, put the Gorn goo on my face and got me in the harness. And by the time we did the day, and Chris Byrne, the director, was just saying, we did basically one take where I flew back, and he's just like, "Okay, you're going to go, and I want it to hurt, and I want to hear Hammer scream, and we need to see like I want to like gruesome death." And they just one take blew me up in the air, and I screamed, and I think there were some assistants or whatever throwing like baby Gorn up so it would look like I was exploding. Delightful. That moment of like, I don't care if this makes it in, this is so fun.
Davy was holding out on us, man. He said that it was hard to write that because like the emotions and stuff, and he didn't tell us there was like a version where you exploded. Wow.
Release that cut. No.
Absolutely. Wow, yes. I'm not picturing like the slow motion Hans fall at the end of Die Hard. And just exploding with Gorn halfway down.
Wow.
Yeah. And I guess they were gonna, because the camera was on the floor pointed up at the ceiling, and I was hanging above the camera, and then they pulled me away from it. So that angle is how it would, like, you were looking off the back of the ship and I fall back.
Okay.
With Gorn blowing up. I think that's how it was gonna work. But yeah, that, like, physically that was just so fun to do. Looking back on it now, it's like I would have told myself beforehand, just like, relax, trust, it's going to be fine. But just for that day of rehearsal, again, just extraordinary people working on it, because there were 6 stunt people that were gathered around the crash mat, going to catch me if I fell or whatever. But they were.
Don't let him hit the expensive camera.
Yeah.
We can get another Enar.
So we do have a little bit of background on a couple of people's auditions for Strange New Worlds. We've heard that it was mostly a very secretive process, but that it sounds like for some people there was a Rongovian involved in the audition scene. Was there a Rongovian in your audition scene?
Rongovian. I don't know what that is.
They're like the empathetic mirror aliens that do everything you do.
Oh, there was not. No, the scene I got was the Hammer Uhura intro scene with Spock interjecting. There was more to the scene than obviously, like, that happens all the time. That edits get made and things, but there was a chunk in the original audition piece that I totally connected with from the first reading, where I can't remember the exact lines, but Uhura asks if I heard you have some sort of precognitive ability, and he says, "Is it precognition to feel the changing of a temperature when the light goes out, to to hear the direction of the wind?" So what you call precognition is just paying attention, essentially, or listening in a different way, which it really struck me of that description and that kind of parallel, and how oftentimes I get asked, "Well, you're blind, so you must hear better. Your hearing must be better." And I think, well, it's not better. It's just it's like a muscle. I use it differently, and I work it differently.
You are Daredevil, right?
In your spare time.
In the reboot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have to ask, speaking of Uhura, do you think that your time shadowing stage workers colored your time with Uhura as her mentor, or Hemmer's time with Uhura as her mentor? Do you think playing a mentor was easier because you had such great mentors?
Yeah, I definitely channeled some of my mentors. I'm not going to lie. That gruff exterior, the sort of no nonsense, and then just the ability to articulate very clearly. I've had so many mentors that were like that, and also huge heart. And I thought a lot about that in, even just from that first scene where we're kind of quote unquote messing with Uhura. Underneath it all, I was just thinking about how much my mentors meant to me, and how much they just imparted in their wisdom and their way about it. Definitely feeling some of the mentors in that for sure. Yeah.
Well, and you could actually see it, I think, even in that first scene. I think one of your last lines is something like, "I like her." And it's like, that comes across as very genuine. So I'm thinking that might be part of that. So we do have the John and Cameron are filmmakers. They do have some formal training, so they have a burning important question about practical effects. Antennae, what is it like to have them? Do you collaborate with the antenna operators?
These are the big questions.
Do they feel like they should be there? Do you have phantom antenna now?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it was a question right from the start, was whether or not they were gonna move, if they were gonna be animatronic. And yeah, I think the talk at the time was that any effect that they were going to have was going to be added in post. So they were also like one of the first pieces that got glued onto my head every morning. So I was pretty comfy with them. I just totally forgot that they were there. Totally forgot.
Ever knocking you off on some low-hanging doors?
No.
Drop it into the food while Anson was cooking on screen,
Oh, that would have been a good bit, though. Like when he filled my wine cup, if Hammer just sort of put an antenna in it. like an elephant.
This is how Andorians drink. Did you not know that? Very insensitive.
Daring Uhura to ask.
And then just look right at her.
Yep.
What?
Wow, okay. John, while I catch my breath, if you could just play Isaac and Hogan's questions, please.
Here we go.
Is this thing on?
Is it?
Yep.
Is it working?
Thanks for having us. I am Isaac.
And I'm Hogan Nerd.
And we are from
Unplanned Trek.
We're really excited to be on this week. Thank you for inviting us to the stage. We have a question for you this week.
We do.
So, we presume that your character has passed away doing the ultimate sacrifice. But we didn't see you die on screen, and we know that mirror universes exist.
We also know that many, many alternate timelines exist in Star Trek. So tell us, are you coming back?
And are you allowed to tell us if you're coming back? Or do contracts preclude that kind of... secret getting out.
No one listens to this, so it'll just between you and me.
And me.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, that's delightful. Well, I will say this: what I can legally say is that the Star Trek career of Bruce Horak is not over. That's
That
what
is
I can.
nothing
wonderful
more.
to hear.
That is the
There's been
official
lots
line.
of teasing, and we've
Oh,
all been
yeah.
like, "Wait, what have they said? Have they said season 2? Have they said Discovery? What did they say?"
Seems like a very carefully crafted response.
Very carefully, very like I think there's a whole team of lawyers that hammered out every single word in that sentence, and that's what I'm saying. I'm sticking to it.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's the Paramount version of confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
It's very teasy. I really like
Yeah,
it.
I understand that Jonathan Frakes has a T-shirt that says "Don't ask me, I signed an NDA."
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
he
Was he
could
wearing that when you
franchise-
met him? Is that
no, he wasn't
no,
actually.
no? Okay. All right.
Interesting. You know what I do? I have to say, I do love to hear the theories. I'm being a writer myself and a storyteller and an improviser. I'm always curious to hear what within realms of possibility people see as the potential. I think it's dynamite. I mean, to me, it's the birth of good storytelling. Is part of it is like be obvious, but also like give them what they want. And I can't wait. I can't wait. For more theories.
When the story spawns its own little more stories from the fans, that's when you know you've got something.
That's right.
So going into season 1, you know Hemmer isn't going to make it, but it did allow you to cross some things off of your Star Trek bucket list, I believe it was your phrasing. And we now have, as you have said, reason to believe that your time in Trek is not over. This will be my last question on the subject. Have you crossed anything else off of your Trek bucket list? Good enough for me. Thank you, sir. I promise to drop it. Now, I do have to introduce our next guest, whose name is Jesse, because I'm contractually obligated to do so, but it's not me calling my own show. It's an entirely separate person. Producer John, if you don't mind.
All right. Here's Jesse number 2 for the night.
Hey guys, it's Jessie from Crusher Combo Podcast. I officially get to say that now. Yay. Anyways, I am so stoked that you have Bruce Horak on the pod today. Oh my gosh, I just love Hemmer. I cannot express my love for this character. I was so sad to see his character leave us so soon into the series. My poor little Trekkie heart still hasn't recovered. Okay, so now that I got that out of my system, my question for Bruce is, I believe I heard that you knew Hemmer was going to die in the series, so I'm curious, because you knew this information, did that play a role in how you approached Hemmer, like with his relationship with Uhura, or how he treated the captain, or did you just roll with it and let everything fall into place? I really hope that made sense. Anyways, thanks guys, I appreciate it. Bye.
Jesse, great question, and thank you for that. I did not know, although I did know that Hemmer was going to die, I did not know how it was going to happen until, a week and a half or 2 weeks before we shot the episode. And that was like one of the last episodes that we shot. So knowing that, I think I just rolled with it episode to episode, tried to play it as the burgeoning of a relationship. I also knew that they had laid out that he was going to be a mentor figure to Uhura. So I suspected that he might go in that direction of sacrificing himself for her. I didn't realize it was going to be for the entire crew and that it was going to be, as dark and alien-like. Yeah, so really episode to episode, and honestly, the beauty of the show is that every episode was so different, and there was a different part of Hemmer's personality that got revealed. So, the sort of spontaneous fun of being in the wizard outfit, and then like getting to be possessed by an alien, and getting this sort of light disease where he goes tries to transport half a planet core into the transporter pad, like all that stuff. I mean, just like so much fun. And then the sort of curmudgeonliness around like, oh, we're gonna retrofit some rockets, and I'm gonna be the one to do it, and all that sort of the layers or whatever. Not really thinking ahead to the character's death, because I mean, really, I had no idea how it was gonna happen, or what what was gonna lead up to it, and what the consequences of that was gonna be. So I just played him like any one of us. It's like, we all know we're gonna die, but we don't necessarily dwell on it every day. At least I haven't today. Oh, great! Now I am. Thanks, thanks, Jesse.
That's what Open Pike Night is. Yep, that's what we do. So I think that actually leads really well into our friend Peter's question, John. If you don't mind queuing that up for me.
Hi, it's Peter again. Thank you, Mr. Horak, for joining Open Pike Night and sharing your experience playing Chief Engineer Hammer. Hammer was my favorite new character introduced in Strange New Worlds. I enjoyed watching his confidence, his appreciation of science, as well as the development of his mentor relationship with Cadet Uhura. I was sad to see his fate in All Those Who Wander and wish we could have had more scenes with Hammer. I have a general question about your portrayal of Hammer. Was there any aspect of Hammer's background or personality which you would have wanted the show to explore more if there was more time? Congratulations on helping to launch Strange New Worlds. While I'm still sad that we probably won't see Hammer anymore, I'm glad to have heard that we will see you again in Star Trek in some capacity. Live long and prosper.
Was there some, I thought a lot about the backstory of how he got to be chief engineer on the Enterprise, and yeah, there's a lot of questions in there that I have that I think far better writer than I could show. I think being a pacifist and getting into Starfleet would have been an interesting, kind of conundrum for this character. And certainly, what I knew about the Enar was that they're a really dwindling race. Like, there's only, I think, somewhere I read there's only like 1,000 of them left. So to leave your 1,000 people or 999 people behind and go and join this, obviously it's not a military operation, but there's elements of it that seem, at least to me, to be, militaristic. They are armed. So he's a pacifist, but he's willing to go into that. And what kind of a conflict would that have brought up in amongst his family? Yeah, and what it would have taken for him to make that decision, and what's he leaving behind exactly, and perhaps what was considered to be his duty. What is the Enar's duty as a member of this dwindling, dying pacifist race?
So Hammer's brother has a vendetta against Starfleet.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. He's rejected his pacifism.
And he's like, what's the opposite of pacifism? That's what I am now.
Me.
Kind of like it writes itself. What can I say?
Writer, this is great.
Yeah,
What's the opposite of pacifism? Me.
That's the poster right there.
Hammer.
It's 1998. I'm going to go to this movie without parental consent. I'm very excited. Wow. Okay, so let's go ahead and have our friend Abby's question right here, because I think this is a great way to expand on this.
Hey, Open Pike and Bruce. This is Abby Summer from the First Flight podcast. Please excuse my just getting over losing my voice, but I couldn't resist this opportunity to ask a question to my favorite Anar. So the First Flight podcast is an Enterprise rewatch podcast, and that's where the Anar were first introduced. And while we got some backstory on the Andorian side, a lot more, we got little tidbits here and there about the Anar. And I know that a lot of actors, when they're preparing for a role, make up things for their own personal headcanon about characters, about their past or their family or their likes or their dislikes or the such, because it helps them play the character authentically. And I was wondering, since Hammer is from the Anar, which are so sparsely populated in fact and in presence, if there was anything that you had in your personal headcanon for Hammer that impacted how you portrayed him on the screen. And thank you for doing so, because he is one of my favorite characters, and his death, while glorious and heartfelt, is something I'm going to have a hard time getting over. So hope that all of you and yours are well.
Thank you. My headcanon. Well, yeah, there was, I think right from the start, as I was considering playing a technically blind character and bringing my own kind of lived experience to that, because that's really when, when an audition call comes out and they say we're looking specifically for a blind or visually impaired actor to play a blind character. It seems to me anyway that the drive is, or at least the response I've gotten when I ask about it, is that the drive is to bring some lived experience to this, some of that. Like, I hesitate to use the word authenticity because I don't know, it gets used so much nowadays. I'm not really sure what it means, but lived experience I could relate to. And the thing from that very first scene where he, again, he gets challenged by Uhura, or perhaps he takes it as a challenge of somebody when you're being called. Does she call him disabled? No, she calls him impaired. She uses the word impaired. Yes.
Okay.
Someone with your impairment, and he sort of bristles at the word impaired. That leapt to me, because that's been kind of a specter in my life of dealing with not only the word of it, but the boundary of impairment. What does it mean? And I've had some mentors who say, well, what you consider to be your weakness is actually your strength. So bringing some of that kind of understanding to it, it felt like a real match for me. But also growing up, going back to my very long story about working at the CNIB and getting, my blindisms trained out of me. Another phrase that I heard during that workshop was that this is a sighted world. You have to fit in. You have to find a way. And whether that is through tips and tricks, or learning to get rid of your blind isms, or is it using technology so that I have a little telescope so I can read the blackboard from my seat in school, or I can watch a play through this little telescope that I carry. I learned to type when I was in grade 3 because it was faster and easier for me to type on a keyboard than it was for me to try to handwrite and read back my notes because of how I see. And then I can type in really large print and change the fonts. So I started using technology really, really early on. And then, of course, in my lifetime, the magic of the iPhone and GPS technology. And, when I go for a walk now, I just put on Google Maps and it can direct me to a place. I don't have to necessarily be reading the street signs. And I can use my phone to read, the stoplights across the street. So using all of this technology in order to fit in, it's brought me into it, but I will always feel that I am a bit of an outsider because I do have a disability, and without my technology or my assistance, I am, for all intents and purposes, impaired. But what I think is so beautiful about Star Trek is that, and I got into this conversation pretty early on as well, of like, how does an Enar who's blind read one of these visual screens? Like, how does that actually work? And then this long sort of meditation on it, and it only struck me because I'm like, well, telepathy isn't necessarily, like, I don't understand that to be reading like an iPad screen, that you can't use telepathy for that, right? I mean, isn't it like mind control? And like, that's telepathy, not necessarily this, but it's an openness of sensation. And I was making tea at home, and I went, and the kettle was going, and I went to reach for it. Before my hand touched the kettle, I could feel the heat coming off of the kettle onto my hand. And I thought, well, if I don't have to use my hand, if I can use my mind and I can feel those changes in temperature anywhere, then a pixel lighting up on a screen, I would sense the electrical buzz, or I might hear it at a finite level, or I could physically feel the warmth coming off of that pixel. So I would be able to read a screen. It would be, and this is always my, as soon as I start digging down to these, like, even at these superpowers, you're not really blind. Like Daredevil, like, sees better than anybody. Like, let's be honest, if you had a radar, you wouldn't have to open your eyes, for that sake. I mean, if I could hear your heart beating to know that you're lying, like, why? Like, I would just close my eyes all day long and just go, fuck these things. I mean, they're getting in the way, So again, this is like maybe perhaps overanalyzing. I don't know. No, I've just called out Daredevil. Damn, there goes the casting.
No, we'll push. We'll push. We're very persistent, if not influential. So
sometimes the same thing.
Yeah.
A question did occur to me with Abby's. A lot of these people have said how much Himmer meant to them and how sad they were when he died. And yeah, he's this great character, and like this whole group of fans is grieving this one character. Were there any TV characters you watched growing up whose death kind of affected you? That you're realizing now you are stepping into that same role?
Well, I mean, the one that strikes me certainly first as most memorable was Henry Blake on MASH.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that just, and of course I was watching that in reruns or whatever, didn't know it was coming, but oh my gosh, that was pretty devastating.
Spoilers for MASH, everybody.
Yeah, this whole next section is going to be spoilers, for sure. You know, and it's questionable if he ever did die, but when Sam Beckett on Quantum Leap, I mean, that final episode where it's like, he left out and never came home,
never returned
like,
home.
Oh,
like,
he
what
never
the hell?
It's so.
Why would you do this to people?
Have you heard the theory that he actually leapt into Captain Archer? Anyway, it's a whole Enterprise.
I like that.
Yeah, I've heard a whole crossover, like Quantum Enterprises. Anyway, never mind.
We'll do a whole separate podcast on that later.
We do, yes. We will make time. So you had mentioned a specific comfort with technology. We've heard from a few of the other actors on the show that technobabble can be kind of a sore spot in scripts. And as chief engineer, you've got your fair share of it on top of all your character work. Are you a technobabble pro, or was that a tough ladder to climb?
It got better. It definitely got better over the season. Like, I think my first day of shooting was like walking into the sick bay and asking to check the transporter because I've been running a diagnostic ship-wide, and there was a lot of babble in that very first scene. And yeah, I stumbled a few times, and I felt like, oh, this is it. This is where they find out I can't do it, and they're gonna fire me. But by the end of it, and I can't remember who gave me this piece of advice, but it really, really worked for me, was to analyze a technobabble and to work it like a piece of Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
And really that just solidified the images. And as soon as I could get the images of what I was talking about, and I mean, that's kind of the beauty of this Star Trek. Like, the words that they're using, the things that they're describing are quite accurate in their description. So, and I know they have a lot of pretty heavy hitters working on the techno jargon and babble, and it actually all makes sense to me in a kind of a weird way. So I would work on the script like that. I would break the words down into the images that they're trying to describe, and that's just a long-winded way of saying I got better. I learned.
That's brilliant. That's the best answer we've had on technobabble yet, honestly. So, and if the chief engineer didn't have a good answer for that, that might be so well done. I think this would be a good time to bring in our new friend, Jack.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Jack from Australia. I'm 11 years old, and my dad is from the show Unplanned Trek, which I'm on sometimes. Yes. So I'm very excited to be on stage tonight because, Strange New World is one of my favorite Star Trek series, if not my favorite. So I've got some questions for Bruce. So question one, did you keep anything from set, and if so, what was it? And question two, how long does it take to get into your uniform and put on all your prosthetics and stuff? So thank you for having me, and live long and prosper.
Nice, thanks, Jack. Did I take anything from set? Nothing that I wasn't authorized to do. How about that?
Perfect.
There were, all of the departments had wrap gifts made, and the stunt department gave me a stunt t-shirt. The prosthetics department gave me one that says prosthetics crew on it, which is pretty choice. Oh, there's this thing which is sitting right here. Hang on, I'll grab it. It's from the wardrobe department, which is a water bottle, and it's got. How about I hold it by the camera? It's got the
very
Starfleet
cool.
insignia, and the
Yeah.
insignia has a clothespin in it, and it says, "Look what you've gone and done." Which is a reference to just the incredible feat that was shooting that first season. I mean, it was pandemic times. It was heavy lockdown. I believe and the rumor I heard was that there wasn't a single writers meeting where they were all in a room together. It was done over Zoom, and that's extraordinary to me that they managed to do that. I mean, we were under heavy protocols with the masks, and I was, because I couldn't wear a mask over the prosthetics, so I was wearing one of those sort of plastic doggy shield cone things.
Oh, yeah.
But we couldn't sit together and hang out, and still managed to gel and vibe as a team, as a family. I mean, that beautiful scene where we're sitting in Pike's quarters and having dinner just felt like, it was a huge breath of just being able to socialize and hang out, and it was just awesome what that crew was able to do. But the question was whether I took anything from set. I will say I did get a set of my antenna.
Excellent.
from my good friends in prosthetics, and sacrilegiously I've got them sitting on my Chewbacca doll at home. He just looks great with but anyway, I haven't got a Hammer doll yet, although somebody did send me a Hammer 3D Hammer action figure, which was pretty extraordinary.
Nice.
The other question, so what did it take something, and the costume and getting in. Yeah, the prosthetic pieces, 15 individual pieces, took 3.5 hours to apply and then paint. Every time I had a day on set, and then costume was relatively quick, although they did have to make a slight amendment to my shirt, so they had to put in a double zipper at the back that's carefully hidden because there's no zippers in the future, Mr. Roddenberry. So they had to apply the sort of hidden zipper so I could get the shirt over my head and antenna, and in order to I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but so to protect the prosthetics, and I was wearing prosthetics on my hands as well, they would put these sort of mesh baggies over my hands and head, and then there would be two people that would sort of pull the shirt on over it, and then I'd have to get the bags off and be very, very careful. And then, of course, all through the day, the makeup would be coming off of my hands. So between takes, Shane and Alan, who were the prosthetics guys, would come out and they'd have to reapply the hands. Shane did say that if I could get through a whole day without having to have my hands reapplied, he would buy me a bottle of scotch. There's no bottle of scotch.
Not a drink that you had.
No.
So what I'm getting is there's lots of dignity involved when you're wearing that many prosthetics.
So much dignity. Yeah.
Was there someone who had to follow you around just to wipe up all the blue fingerprints then? Was that a job in and of itself?
It was, yes. There were people in the props and set department that would come up between takes and wipe Hammer's fingers off the consoles, because I did have wandering hands. I just wanted to play with the little jelly beans,
It looks so touchable, I gotta say. Yeah.
It's just so cool.
Yeah. So your final scene in 109 adds some serious context to Spock's sacrifice in Wrath of Khan, as he has now been shown an example of what it means to live your ideals, even when those ideals seem in contrast to the role of a Starfleet officer. What does it feel like to be connected to one of the most iconic characters in television history in such a profound way?
Oh, I shouted when I read that script. I was so happy, miserable. Miserably happy. I was stupidly happy because from the reading, the first time I read that script, I thought, oh, he goes cool. Thank you. He goes out cool. It's not just like, what's this button do? And that's it. He goes cool, and that was my hope for it, and it was better even than I'd hoped for. I thought, well, best case scenario is he sort of falls on a grenade for Uhura, but that it's the whole ship. And then that moment where Spock, and when I read that he gives the Vulcan salute and says, "Live long and prosper, my friend," I was just like, kidding me? Like, I get that. I get to be the guy that Spock rips off.
Yes! That is what we will use to get Ethan Peck on this show. We'll be like, guess what?
The 50th anniversary edition of Wrath of Khan, they'll add in a line where Kurt goes, he pulled a hammer.
Yep. He's totally pulling a hammer, sir.
He hammered.
Wow. I really like that.
Season 1 truly is the hemorrhage.
Boo.
I like cut that. Garbage.
No. We are fans of hammer puns on this podcast.
Yes.
Don't you worry.
I believe our last call-in question is from our friend Jesse. Again, this is not me. This is a third Jesse. This one is
We've got a lot of Jessies in our universe.
Yes.
So, yep.
This one's in Alaska. So
here we go.
Oh, cool.
Hi, this is Jesse from Alaska. I'm a big fan of Hemmer. I was very disappointed by the end of this first season. One thing that struck me was what seemed to be a pre-existing friendship with Spock. And I thought that was really interesting because with the Andorians, you saw like a personality clash with the Vulcans. I was kind of expecting there to be more of a personality clash rather than a friendship. So I was wondering, was this character friendship something that you worked out with Ethan Peck and the writers? Did you have input on this aspect of Hemmer's development? I have to say, I was really hoping for a Hemmer and Spock buddy episode, just to see more of that dynamic, because we really only saw it when they were hazing Uhura during that captain's dinner. Thanks.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think in terms of other elements of Hemmer's story to explore, I think that would have been a lot of fun. Just to see the bond between them and what that was like. I had no input into that element of it, and it was apparent right from that first read, the audition, that these two guys, at least in their alien way, enjoyed each other's presence, shall we say. I enjoy your presence. Yeah, gosh, totally a buddy film would have been great. I mean, again, I want to hear the fan theories on that. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, but working with Ethan Peck is a dream. He met me on the very first day. I think it was even just doing my camera test. So I was in my full prosthetics and makeup and costume and everything, and he met me at the stage door and walked to the set with me on my first day. I think he was one of the first other actors that I met face to face. We'd met over Zoom, but that was the first, and he was in his full Spock gear because he would have to go into the same trailer and get his ears done. A nicer guy you could not meet. He was so generous and kind, and one of the first things he said is like, I'm really looking forward to working with you. I'm so excited about this. And from that moment on, I'm like, okay, I can see why Hemmer and Spock get along. Like, that's easy. There's no acting there. Between takes, he's just a jovial, very funny guy, and just absolutely got along with him. And he certainly made it very easy to at least get the sense underneath that they liked each other.
But his prosthetics took like 8 minutes, right? And then he would just
oh my
show
God.
up.
Nothing. He was in and out.
There was a couple shots you didn't even need prosthetics.
You just get to be human you? That's not fair.
What?
I can just picture him walking into your trailer while the makeup's going on and just razzing you the whole time. Hey man, how's it going?
Yeah. How long you been here? 3 hours and 21 minutes.
Oh, is this your breakfast? Looks like it's getting cold. Here, I'll eat it for you. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I know this one is yours because it has your fingerprints on it. So
that's right.
Well, I usually take this point try to steal the interview for a 20 or 30 minute deep dive into the Elysian Kingdom, but we don't want to keep you too long, so let me just maybe take an Elysian minute here and ask one of my new favorite parts is asking people what their favorite Anson Mount improv was while filming the Elysian Kingdom.
Oh my God, the moment where he's in between Babs and I, and then like did the whole runaway down the hallway. I don't know. I don't know if it was. I think it was scripted, but no, not the way he did it. I mean, it was just. Oh my God, it's so fun! It's so fun because it's just like that goofy side of Anson is just it's so much fun.
Well, we also get to kind of see the goofy side of Himmer. I mean, I feel like even though you're not mind controlled until the very end, like we are seeing like he almost feels like burdened, like whatever weight is upon him or has left him for this. He's like the I think we described him as the friend you drag to D&D who doesn't want to go, and then as soon as he starts, he's like more into it than anyone. Like what?
Oh yeah, 100%.
What was your take? What was your take on Himmer there?
Well, I had, oddly enough, when the pandemic hit, some friends from across the country started a D&D campaign, and I'd never played before.
Oh.
And so we had a probably monthly campaign that would go until like 3 a.m, just epic. So I can't remember what the campaign was called, The Mines of Fandarin or something like that. Just delightful first campaign, and a lot of us who were playing, it was our first time. So the character I set up was like a wizard.
Yes.
And I found these like snap camera filters of a wizard that I would wear and over the Zoom thing, and we our dwarf had the filter going, and we just got right into the characters, just a riot, figuring that out. And then the script came out for Elysian Kingdom, and I went in for my costume fitting and tried on the wizard outfit, and I just thought, oh, if only I could talk about this and get a photo and make a like a full wizard avatar for my D&D game. Just so much fun. Yeah, I mean, it's like the cork comes out for Hammer in that, where he starts to play around with the world of science and magic, and in his own way, kind of adopt the role of being the wizard and playing along with it. Yeah, it was just a riot. And honestly, the scene in the hallway where I got to pull out the communicator and play with that was like, again, that was part of my Star Trek bucket list, was getting to play with a communicator, because we used to, pretend to have those as kids, and the flip phones came out, and, all of that. So it's just, yeah, it was getting to just jump into that world and mess around. And also so much fun to make Babs laugh. Oh my God. That's the best. Not going to lie.
Very nice. I mean, that line reading of abracadabra, the magic, when you transport them, like how much of that is you or the script or the director? Because that's a moment.
She just let me play with that, and the first time it was a little bit straight, and then she's like, oh, just mess around and play, and I got probably 3 or 4 stabs at it, and really taking into account what I had been witnessing from my castmates, which was this incredible amount of play, and that was the episode where I got to work closest with Babs, and honestly, watching the way that his takes were so dynamic, I thought, okay, I'll if Hammer's cork is coming out, then here we go.
I gotta say, that's also not the first time that we have heard Anson Mount's running form mentioned as a favorite memory of that episode. So that's good to hear that's consistent across cast members.
Yeah.
So, Bruce Horak, Open Pike Night is a open mic night themed podcast. And so we're curious if you have a favorite joke to share with our listeners tonight.
Oh my! This was probably in the prep material that I didn't read.
It's okay. We've gotten some great ad libs, some great anecdotes, some great bad jokes.
Jokes. Well, I'll tell you this. It's a bit of a story, but the payoff is dynamite. How about
Bring
that
it.
for the
Absolutely.
setup for a joke?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, the
Hands
payoff
down.
is great.
Oh no! Don't tell us that story with a dynamite ending, please.
Boom. I wrote a solo show a number of years ago that I toured for 10 years. And the piece is called This is Cancer. And in the show, the living embodiment of the disease cancer has decided to put on a show for what he believes to be his adoring public. So Cancer is this immortal figure that is the bastard son of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and Ares, the god of war. And in his heart is the arrow of Cupid that was stabbed into his mother when Aphrodite's husband Hephaestus, who was the god of blacksmiths, found out that she was cheating on him with Ares. He stole Cupid's arrow and stabbed it through Aphrodite's belly, plunging into her unborn child's heart, and that child was Cancer. He sees people, he falls in love with them, absolutely like head over heels, and then they start to get sick and die as a result of it. So he's this mythological figure, and he's Googled himself and found that cancer has more hits than Jesus. And so he's like, people love me. They're raising money for me. They're running marathons. It's like cancer. This M&M's has now got a whole cancer thing. So you love me. I'm going to do a show. And he is this arrogant, egotistical ass. And so I wear a head to toe gold lame speed skating outfit, super tight spandex thing. It's got all sorts of lumps and bumps all over it, and I've got blacked out eyes and bad teeth, and talk with like a British accent. He's a bit like Mick Jagger, a little bit Eddie Izzard. Like he loves people, and I come out and I do like a big rock and roll opening, and Cancer's like, oh yeah, you guys love me, and he does this big show, and then eventually the audience, he says, well, you're a little upset or whatever, and the audience turn on him. And he decides to quit the show, but he has to finish because he's under contract. So then he tells the whole story of how he came to be doing this show. And he has this black book. And in the black book are the names of everyone he's ever fallen in love with. And at first, first time he brings it out, he's like, I fucked everyone. I mean, God, like Sammy Davis Jr. He had, I loved him, obviously to death. And he does all the stories of everyone that he's ever loved. When he comes back after trying to storm out, he opens up the book again. And in the book, he finds my father's name, Carl Horak, who died of cancer. And he tells the story of how he fell in love with Carl and how he fell in love with Carl's baby, Bruce, and Bruce's eyes. So my story gets told sort of through this twisted and demented way through cancer. And at the end of the show, cancer, and I sing a few songs throughout just to sort of pick up my spirits. And at the end of the show, I ask the audience, as human beings who are bound to die, how do you get through your day? And the audience will begin to respond. And cancer accidentally falls in love with an audience member at the end of the show. He's like, oh shit, now I'm going to have to come home with you. I'm sorry. Oh, wait, I've got an idea. Cancer brings out a pool noodle, gets the audience member to beat the living shit out of him in front of the whole audience, defeating cancer at the end, and then we all sing a song to go home. I toured this show for 10 years, and just one of my absolute proudest moments is doing that show. It was very difficult to get up every morning and go and do the piece because I knew obviously people are going to respond to it in an emotional way. So I would get up every morning and I would read jokes, just absolutely any joke. And it became a thing while I was touring it on the North American Fringe Circuit in 2012. That after shows, all the performers would meet in the beer tent. We would hang out, and then it just became a joke night. And everyone would bring out their favorite jokes, and you would hear just the stupidest ones to the most like absurd, and like everything in between. And I just became absolutely addicted to just telling jokes and hearing jokes and learning jokes, and I've forgotten them all.
There's a turn. You got us. You roped us in. Then you beat us with a pool noodle.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
An emotional pool noodle over the heart there. Wow.
I haven't done that show since 2014, and it does remain just one of the absolute highlights of my life is getting.
Sounds fantastic.
This is cancer. Yeah.
The conception of it, if I may,
joy.
is
Yes.
the story that you told of the idea behind it. I was entirely wrapped. I was like, this is amazing. I can't write to save my life, literally. So, wow.
Well, thank you.
We'll have to have you back on sometime and talk about all this this love for mythology I'm sensing here and seeing a theme.
Oh, I just adore it. Yeah, and part of it is being the son of an English teacher. And also he was a comic book collector. So, and as we all know, like so much mythology is wrapped into the comic book and superheroes that we know. I mean, I think I learned about most of the gods just by reading Shazam.
Sure.
Or Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Well, we could also do a whole episode on your painting, which we didn't get into too much, but I think you're like in the middle of a project with that right now. Is there anything you want to kind of promote here at the end?
Oh, well, yeah, ongoing is my portrait series. So, about 10 or 12 years ago now, I started painting portraits in an attempt to capture the way that I see. I'm close to 700 portraits in the series now, and have opened it up, and since the pandemic, I now do them over Zoom. So I can book a session through my website. It's got my calendar on there, and there's sort of 3 different options, from a 30-minute sitting to an hour-long sitting to an hour-long sitting plus like a acrylic canvas painting that you get in the mail. I do them primarily digitally now, so you get an original work of art kind of at the end of the project. I'm hoping to get to 1,000. Well, I'd sort of planned by December 31st. That ain't going to happen. But well, I didn't say what year, though. How about that?
Exactly. There you go.
I'll have it done by December 31st.
Give us a link and we will push people to it.
BruceHorak.com. Yeah, right there.
And a lot of your art is displayed on there too, and you got some fantastic pieces there. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We've been talking tonight with good old reliable Bruce Horak, artist, actor, expert at blood spatter cleanup, and our favorite Enar. It's been fantastic discussing Star Trek, stagecraft, art, and the opposite of pacifism. Bruce, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So many new headcanon stories now.
My favorite part of making this show is the time between when we record it and when everybody else hears it, because for those like couple of days I go, I wonder if this is some modicum of what it felt like to have season 1 of Strange New Worlds in the can and know that nobody had seen it yet. Like, this is going to be so cool and people's minds are going to be blown. And I got to tell you, our listeners are in for some serious treats. Thank you so much, Bruce.
This was a treat. Thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it. Yeah. And nice find on the Evil Dead. That was a nice memory. Thank you.
As always, we want to keep every episode of Open Pike Night free to all. And to make that possible, please head over to patreon.com/openpike or our website, openpike.com. Our supporters on Patreon have already had a video greeting from tonight's recording, as well as a post-episode discussion to enjoy after they hear the episode. That's one of the many benefits you too can have when you become a patron for as little as $2 a month. Jesse, how else can our listeners help?
Of course, we can't make Open Pike Night without you, as John mentioned, so the best way for you to help us do that is to go to openpike.com/join us, and you can record your voicemail message there directly. Or if you'd like, you can go the old way and just record 90 or fewer seconds and send them to openpike@gmail.com. You can also currently still follow the show on Twitter @OpenPike, and you can also check out our brand new Discord server, which we like to call Open Pike Backstage.
Cam, where can our listeners find more of you?
Yes, the mythology of Green Shirt, a newbie's trek through the next generation is alive. That's where I am watching Star Trek, The Next Generation, for the very first time, along with my more knowledgeable co-host and producer John T. Bolds. They're guiding my way. You can find us on Twitter @GreenShirt87 and wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Jesse, where can folks find more of you?
If for whatever reason you need more of me in your ears, just stay in this podcasting app and search for Sudden But Inevitable. That's the show where I turn longtime friends into brand new fans of the shows I feel they probably should have seen by now. Shows like Firefly or Cowboy Bebop or Death Note or movies like Highlander. Like, I know people that haven't seen Highlander. What is that? So I fixed it and they've seen it now. And if you'd like to hear about that, just look for Sudden But Inevitable.
And I can be found on Twitter @JohnTBolds or on our Discord server, chatting with folks now and then. It's been a long night, and we didn't ask him to, but Bruce Horak somehow made the blood spatter appear in all of our recording spaces. We're talking like across the entire country here, and it's a mess. So we got to get to cleaning this up. We hope you all have a great night. Don't forget to tip your servers. You can go anywhere you want, but you can't stay here.
Is there a one-word, no-context tease that you could leave us with? For example, when Melissa Navia was here, she could have said Starfall, and we wouldn't know what that means, but then when we see Elysian Kingdom, we'd be like, oh, Starfall, that's her sword. That's what she was talking about.
Oh, God. Honestly, I'm drawing a blank.